Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man on the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you're probably asking yourself a couple of questions. Where have you been? And where are you now? Well, actually, if you are a returning visitor, you probably already know that I'm back in South Korea and I'm back in my office. You're probably used to this background, right? Of course, right. Now, the first question, where have I been? Well, I did go to the United States and I was there for almost a month, and I had planned to, and I started doing my regular series while I was there. And then things happen. You know what they say, the best laid plans of mice and men? Well, the emotional drain and the time drain around a couple of situations that sprung up while I was at home just made things too difficult for me to keep going with doing videos. And so I'm sorry I had to put it on pause for a couple of weeks, but I'm back. And friends, I'm back. I am here in South Korea, but I've decided I'm going to continue with the Back to Basics series that I started within the deep dive into the thought system, because I still think it was a worthwhile project, and I still think it would be useful for both me and hopefully for you. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now, if you haven't seen the Back to Basics video that I did before, let me just tell you what it is. Instead of doing a large monstrosity of a spread that I love to do, I'm going back to a 3-card spread. And it's a basic 3-card spread with a couple of oracle cards tossed in just to add a little bit of flair, because, you know, that's how I jive, right? And this week's video, or this week's spread, I should say, is really interesting. It seems to be about how we want to approach this next period of time between this spread and when I happen to do the next one. Yeah, I always ask the same question. How can we live more intentionally? How can we live our lives more intentionally in the coming time? And the answer to that question seems to point to our emotional choices, if that makes any sense. So friends, instead of giving it all away right at the top of the video, let me show you the spread. I'll show you the spread, I'll tell you what the cards are there pointing to, and then we'll look at the 2 sections of cards. We'll look at the 3 cards from the Thoth Tarot, and then we'll look at the 2 oracle cards. Are you ready? Okay, here is the spread right now. That was the spread. What do you think of the cards I'm using? I've used them before, and I love them. They're not the same as the Harris-Crowley deck, but this is a deck that was very strongly inspired by and created with the same ideas, concepts, and esoteric meanings and associations in mind. The name of the deck is The Surfer's Paradise, and I think it's just brilliant. And I highly recommend it. And if you're interested in that deck, I'll have a link in the description box below. And there was also an oracle deck that I used. You saw 2 cards at the bottom, and that is from the Oracle of the Radiant Sun, a zodiacally based oracle deck. Also very, very useful, especially I think if you're going to be reading with zodiacal associations to cards like you might want to do for the Thoth system or the continental system. So I love this deck as an addition to those kinds of spreads. And you saw that there were 3 cards. At the top, they are positional. I don't often read positionally in my YouTube videos, but for these small 3-card spreads, they are definitely positionally based. The first card is the card for significance, or the main idea, the main point. The second card is the card for challenge, and that could be a positive challenge, something that we are striving for, something that we could hope to achieve, or a negative challenge, something that is blocking or standing in our way. And then the third card is advice. So significance, challenge, advice. And then the two cards at the bottom, the oracle cards, are here to either recapitulate the spread that is above or to give us advice. And we'll see which way those two cards are pointing when we get to those two cards in the reading. So friends, that's what we're going to do. We'll start with the three cards at the top. Let me give you a closer look at those three cards right now. You saw that we had three cards. From left to right, the Nine of Cups, the Lovers, and then the Nine of Discs. Sorry, jumped out of my head for just a moment. But interesting, right? Two nines flanking the Major Arcana card. That doesn't happen very often. And it's very significant that it happens now. And you'll also hopefully notice, have already recognized, that the two suits that are flanking the Major Arcana card are both from what we would call the receptive suits. Yeah, we often think of the elements of the other two suits, the Wands and the Swords, as more active, right? The fire and air as being more active elements, and water and earth as being more receptive elements. That makes sense, right? So we have two receptive elements flanking our challenge card of the Lovers. And so we're going to start off with the Nine of Cups, and it's a beautiful card. The concept of this card is very similar to that created by Lady Frida Harris. The title of this card is Happiness. And I don't know if you can see, but the association for this card is Jupiter in Pisces, which is a natural association for me. And I'll read with the traditional I keep forgetting the name of this whenever I want to say it. I'll put it in a subtitle here for you. It's okay, so I'm not even going to try. So anyways, this matches very nicely with the way that I associate planets and signs of the zodiac. Now, Jupiter, for me, for Pisces, there are three natural planets in association with it. The planet of Pisces for me is Jupiter. So that's the first decanate of Pisces. The second decanate would be the moon, and then the third would be Mars. Because that's the way I conceive of the zodiacal wheel and its decanates, or its decans. So Jupiter here is wonderful. And from that, we get the mutable aspect of, mutable water's vital attributes entering our reading, entering the question we're asking of the Tarot, which is, how can we live life more intentionally in this coming week? We want to be mutably watery. We want to have our mutable water power in activation. What does that mean? So mutable water, it's the last sign and the zodiac, Pisces, right? So that's the one that closes everything up, it cleans everything up, it absorbs everything, it expands everything, and it gets itself ready for the next cycle in the zodiac with Aries again, right? So here we have, again, the Nine of Cups. And you can see in this card how the water flows from the top into the top three cups, and then the water flows powerfully from the top three cups to the middle three cups and then down into the bottom three cups. Emotion is flowing well. And so we can think of Jupiter as being an expansive planet and a planet of good fortune and beneficence. So the expansive and deep emotions are where we want to be moving towards. But expansive and deep emotions can be negative and positive. For this card, we're looking for the positive aspects, yeah? We want to move towards happiness, and not the surface kind of happiness of, oh, what a pretty day, which is wonderful. I'm not knocking surface happiness in the least. But here we're looking for a depth of happiness. Happiness that we can feel from the depths of our soul. We want to be able to celebrate, and for that celebration to create and reward that happiness that we're feeling. So we can celebrate, and in that celebration, create the depth of happiness that we are hoping to move towards, as well as recognizing that that celebration is the reward for the happiness that we feel. Does that make sense? We are here to feel fulfillment of what has been accomplished already. Now we're asked to, even beyond satisfaction, feel fulfillment in our lives. And whether we're feeling at the moment that things aren't going the way we want them to go, or we hope things will change, or it could be better, or why did this have to happen this way, we can still choose at any moment of our lives to reach for satisfaction. And as we reach for satisfaction and move in that direction, we can move through it into the kind of happiness that this card is indicating, which is fulfillment of the things that have been accomplished. You have accomplished a beautiful body. Now, okay, you might be saying, what do you mean beautiful body? Your body is beautiful. It is. Yeah, sure, you might have complaints about it. You might not like its particular shape or size or weight or whatever. But you have co-created a beautiful body that is alive and is here in this physical plane. And that's no small thing. And we can feel fulfillment in whatever it is that we have accomplished. And that's what we're called to in this period of time. Feel that fulfillment. Imagine that we have the potential to admire the abundance that is surrounding us wherever we are. Whether we're out in the middle of a desert alone and feeling thirsty, or we're in the midst of a lush tropical forest with birds singing above our heads and lovely creatures darting and dashing around us in the middle of the day so we feel safe. Wherever we are. Whether we're in the most opulent hotel or a small apartment with no windows in the basement of some big city, we can feel the fulfillment of being who we are, where we are. And that's what this card again is calling for. It's calling for the true wisdom of the self-fulfilled. Not meaning that that's the end of the line. We haven't reached the final destination wherever we are. We're always on our path of an intentional life, right? And that path, I conceive of it more of a river, right? That river, that course is constantly flowing in the direction of our evolution, in the direction of our expansion and our joy and our love and our well-being and our increased love and our clarifying awareness. That's the direction the course of our intention is moving if we're allowing ourselves to move that way. And one way to be able to take the fullest access of that power of intention is to feel happiness, that depth of happiness. Because that depth of happiness indicates that we have opened and we are available to that power which is naturally moving us in the direction that we want to be moving in. If we can have faith and believe in that. And another thing that Crowley likes to point to is imagining the wine poured by Ganymede for Jupiter here. And you know that Jupiter was in love with Ganymede. Ganymede was a beautiful youth, and Jupiter was deeply in love with this youth and brought Ganymede to serve at his table, to pour wine so that Jupiter could admire his beauty. Now, and imagine the most beautiful creature pouring the most delicious wine for you and that depth of happiness that is possible there. Now, maybe we can't reach that at this very instant in time, but that's the direction we want to be moving in. That is how we can live more intentionally. And so the next card gives us some challenge. And for me, I believe two things. One, well, this lover card, three things. The first thing is that this is a beautiful lover's card. Although it is both the different and the same as the card drawn by Lady Frida Harris. There are a lot of the same elements. Yeah, I don't know if you can see them. We have the red lion and the white eagle, right? We have the two children and the Orphic egg. Now, instead of a male and a female being united here, we have two females in different colors. Yeah, and I guess that difference in color could be that which is the difference being joined. And we have, so we have the hermit on top. I forgot something here. I'll go backtrack in just a moment. We have the hermit on top, which is interesting, and we have Cupid. So the hermit's on top, blessing the union. We have the two children, one with golden hair, one with black hair, standing around the Orphic egg, which is wrapped around by the serpent, and we have the red lion and the white eagle. The red lion is holding the sword, the pitchfork, whatever. And it's beautiful. And we can see that this is associated with Gemini, right? Which is the domicile of Mercury, from which mutable air's vital attributes can enter our world. So we had at the beginning mutable water and mutable air, and those two are wonderfully compatible. They neither lift each other up nor tear each other down, but they're compatible. And so for that reason, as well as other reasons, I think that this challenge here is something that we can strive for. Now, going back to the art on the card. In the Harris-Crowley deck, we have just two figures being blessed under the hands of the hermit. Here we have what looks more like the Tarot de Marseille grouping of the lover card, where we got the guy in the center and we have two female figures on either side, and the assumption is that the male figure has to, well, there are different ways of reading it. Most people that I've heard say that the male figure has to choose between two kinds of women. One more sensual, one more virtuous, more honorable, more honor-driven, more socially recognized, and one more sensual and enjoyment life. One and the enjoyment lifestyle, one the lifestyle of virtue and purity, right? Another way that some people read the Tarot de Marseille grouping of people is that one of the women is actually the potential wife and one of the women is the mother. I've heard that. I don't think I see that here. I see two women that this male figure has or is called to choose between, or perhaps is called to join. That's also a possibility. He may be called to do the work of joining these two women into the embodiment of the perfect partner, maybe. I don't know. And another interesting thing is that on the guy's clothes, you can see that he is also split, right? There's the red side and the blue side. Now, one side is not entirely blue and one side is not entirely red, but top and bottom are split red and white, right? I'm a red and blue. So we get that idea of, again, spectral opposites meeting in the center somehow. It's a very interesting card, and one that calls for a lot of deep consideration. The card is associated with the Hebrew letter Zayin, which you can see up there. Where is it? Where is that baby? Yeah, there it is up there. Yeah, that's the Zayin Hebrew letter. And it's the letter associated with sustenance and nourishment. Also weaponry and a sword. Can you kind of see how that letter looks like a sword and a hilt? So that sword could also be used for cutting up time. It's the division of time as well. One thing mentioned in association with the Zayin letter is groups of 7. And I don't know if you know this about traditional Hebrew society, but the year was divided in groupings of 7. And seven groups of 7 years put us to the 49th year, which would make the 50th year the Jubilee year, where slaves were freed and debts were forgiven, etc., etc. Yeah? So that division of time and that grouping of time is also indicated here with Zayin. Now, because we have the Hebrew letter Zayin, we can also look at the rune Kanaz, which kind of looks like a less than symbol in math. Yeah, that kind of arrow pointing thing. And the rune Kanaz is associated with enlightenment, including things like visions, revelation, inspiration, and wisdom. Interesting thing. It's also associated with passion, vitality, and regeneration, creativity, and love. And it's, I think, those aspects more than the enlightenment and revelation aspect. Not discounting those, but that creativity and love, I think that is most closely associated with the Lover's card here. And the card actually refers to the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz, which is an esoteric story about a guy who goes to watch and participate in the marriage of the Red King and the White Queen as a symbol of the alchemical process. So here, we're called to begin the alchemy of bringing opposites and bringing things together, such as sulfur and mercury. And mercury, again, is the symbol of Mercury is the planet as well as the substance, right? And remember, Mercury is also the planet that is domiciled in Gemini. Interesting little things, right? This card also calls for the brothers or the twins below coming together. Understanding can only come from the synthesis of two identical things, even though they appear different. So synthesis, alchemy, is called for here. We want to bring together, using the mutable aspect of Gemini, which can split things apart and go a little bit crazy. Here we're called to do the joining aspect of mutable Gemini, to bring things together. It's not the ending of the process where everything is consolidated like it might be in the art card, but this is the beginning of the process. So we're called to do that. And part of that is nourishment. Part of it is recognizing the different things so that we can bring them together. So as we are sitting here reaching for and moving in the direction of our depth of joy and feelings of self-fulfillment and the enjoyment of who we are, where we are, and celebrating that, and recognizing that that celebration is both the reward and the cause for our happiness. As we are there, we can perhaps be more able to do the work of alchemy, of bringing things that may appear opposite together, joining them to begin the process of birthing the new, birthing the gold, birthing the evolved self even. And so what is the advice for us from here? The advice is to move into the 9 of discs, and this is the 9 of discs. Beautiful card. To me, very different, in especially color, from the work of Lady Frida Harris. But it's a beautiful card. We can see how those 9 discs all form is that a flower of life? It might be a flower of life. It's definitely one of those somethings of life. It's a joining of many seeds of life, I think, to a flower of life. Maybe we'd need more circles there. But anyways, it is at least in that direction, right? The title is Gain, which is wonderful. And you can see the association here is Venus in Virgo. Now for me, Venus in Virgo is not a natural match. Well, wait a second. I lie. No, Venus is a natural match for Virgo because the natural planet, the primary planet for Virgo is Mercury, which we just had in the Lover's card, which is a neat flow, right? We went from mutable water to mutable air, and then we went from Mercury in mutable air to another zodiacal sign that Mercury is naturally associated with, which is Virgo. Now, the next thing to think of is that there are 3 decans of Virgo. The first one, which is Mercury. The second one, which is Saturn for Capricorn. And then the third one, which is Taurus, whose planet is Venus. So Venus in Virgo gives us the 3rd decan of Virgo. So we have the fixed aspect of mutable Earth's vital attributes entering our reading. So here we've got another mutable thing, yeah, and it's the fixed aspect of it, which is kind of good because moving from air to earth, those two are not very happy elements to be stuck up against each other. Now they are actually ill-dignified. But perhaps because we have that fixed aspect here, that ill-dignity could be ameliorated in some way. Also because we've got the 3rd decan of Virgo, we also have here Mercury exalted in Virgo. It is the only planet that I know that is exalted in its own sign. Yeah? So we have, because it's the 3rd decan of Virgo, we have Mercury here exalted. So that, again, ties us back to the Lover card very nicely. So I think the elemental indignity has been smoothed out for those reasons. The 9 of Discs. Yeah? What is this telling us? What is Gain telling us? Well, we're called to continue managing our situations as we have done. And find favor with others. Yeah? Keep up the good work and get along well with the people around us. That's the first piece of advice that this card, I think, is telling us. Continue doing what we're doing, knowing that we're moving in the direction of, and the challenge is to begin an alchemical process. That's not an alchemical process of going off and do something completely new, something we've never seen before, but within the environment of doing what we're doing, we can find things to bring together and do the work of alchemy. So we continue doing what we're doing. Keep up the good work. And our initial enthusiasm here might be waning because we're getting towards the end of the numbers of the suit, right? The energy might be starting to go down. So we want to be careful of that. The next piece of advice is keep the enthusiasm going, which is part and parcel of this happiness card, right? So keep it going, keep it going. The finishing line is in sight and we are gaining ground, so keep going. Everything is the best in the best of all possible worlds. That optimist's quote that is used here by Crowley for this card. Everything is the best in the best of all possible worlds. And when I say optimist, I mean the school of optimism from the 18th century, I think. Don't quote me on time period, but I think so. And according to Crowley, this card purrs with satisfaction at having harvested what it sowed. It rubs its hand and sits at ease, which is wonderful, yeah? Have satisfaction for what we've done. But don't stop. We sit at ease, but at the same time as we sit at ease, we recognize that we're not coming to a full stop. We sit at ease, we take a breather, and we keep going in the same direction we've been going, right? So that's the advice. Enjoy who you are, where you are, in both the emotional sense with the 9 of Cups and the physical stuffness sense of the stuff you have accomplished. the stuff we have done, that we can pat ourselves on the back, that we can purr with satisfaction with the job well done and keep doing the job. And get along with the people around us. That's the advice. Does that make sense? So if anyone were to ask me how to live an intentional life, I'd say pretty much this is the answer for every moment of every day. Now reach towards that satisfaction, because that satisfaction is opening us up to the power of intention, to move with the powerful current of our intention. And that powerful current of our intention is always in the direction of doing the alchemy, of bringing the things together to create the new, to move in the direction of the things that we have placed on our river of intention for us to experience. And we evolve into the beings who have those experiences, and we evolve into the beings who do the alchemy of creating that experience. And in order to do that, the advice is to continually look around, see what you've accomplished, and pat yourself on the back. Job well done. We're not stopping, but job well done. Good job. That was wonderful, right? So friends, we do have 2 cards of advice or a recapitulation. Let's see what those 2 cards end up telling us. Here they are right now. The 2 cards from the Oracle deck, again, the Oracle of the Radiant Sun, tell us this one. Well, on the left you saw restlessness, which didn't look like such a great title, right? Restlessness doesn't sound good. And then status, which has a kind of negative connotation for many of us, perhaps. Yeah, when I first pulled the cards and I saw the titles, I thought, well, that doesn't look so wonderful. It's not horrible, but it doesn't look wonderful either. What does this have to do with the 3 cards above? Well, let's take a look and see. The first card you see here was Mercury in Aries. Now, I don't know if you recall, but remember, the first card was Pisces, Jupiter in Pisces. The very next sign, Pisces moves right into Aries, right? And we pulled down Mercury from the 9 of Discs and from the Lovers into this card. Now, Mercury is not a natural placement for me in Aries. The 3 planets that are naturally inhabiting, let me say that again. The 3 planets that naturally inhabit Mercury for me are the 3 planets that naturally inhabit Aries. Goodness, the 3 planets that naturally inhabit Aries for me are Mars, would be the first decan, and the Sun for Leo would be the second decan, and then Jupiter would be the third decan for Sagittarius. But here we've got Mercury. Now Mercury is the partner of Jupiter for me, so that's kind of cool. Mercury's in his maybe the third decan, it's a house, maybe. In the picture here, you see Mercury himself dashing across the city. The Sun is a compass in this, and the Sun shows our creative possibilities and the directions to travel in. Yeah? The creative possibilities and directions to travel in. That's better said. So the compass shows a direction, and the direction points us into the creative and the creative possibilities and directions that we can travel. I don't know if that made sense. I hope it did. Anyways, let's move along. So we may have too many irons in the fire, wasting our mental and physical energy. That's one thing to be careful of. I think these 2 cards are advice. Now, the first piece of advice is don't try to do too much. Now, if we have too many things on our plates, removes the unnecessary things. Mercury is here to allow us to be good thinkers and articulate ourselves well. But Mercury can also quickly become bored. So we also want to be careful of that, of our ease of becoming bored with doing the things that we have been doing. Now, we don't want to be like a typical Aries that goes off on to find new things the moment they start getting comfortable with it, with something, because, well, now it's boring. Let's do something else. Let's try something new. Now, we don't want to be that kind of people. Now, so we want to make sure we're not trying to do too many things, and make sure that we're a little bit, we keep doing the things that we're doing. The advice that we got from the 9 of discs, right? Recognize that we have the potential to think well and express ourselves well. And we want to take note of our thoughts and ideas, because they could lead to something. They could lead to a writing project, but they could lead to something else. Now, another influence of Mercury. So we want to do some research, do some detective work, and look around where we are. Keep ourselves interested without having to start something new. Just keep doing what we're doing and look around. What's there? Because remember, we're looking for things to bring together, to alchemize. Instead of, again, starting something new, look at what's around us and what can we bring together? What can we form that's new from what's already here as we do what we are doing? And the next card shows us a beautiful Jupiter in Taurus. And we have Jupiter in Pisces at the top in the 9 of Cups card, right? And this card is called Status. So Taurus expanded by Jupiter. And for me, Jupiter is not a natural planet for Taurus. Taurus planets would be Venus, would be the first decan. The second decan would be, what's the second earth sign? Would be Virgo. So that would be Mercury. Mercury, Jupiter's partner, we were just talking about that. So that's the second decan. And then the third would be Saturn for Capricorn. So here we could have Mercury in the decan of his partner Jupiter, which would be the second decan, if you want to work that way. And we had Mercury, which is a natural planet for Taurus, in the first card. And we have now Jupiter, which was the natural planet for the first card, right? So they kind of switched places, which is interesting. And in the picture, we see a dignified couple posing for a portrait with a crown above their heads. For what? For status. There's a lion head. There's a lion-headed dragon. There are 2 lion-headed dragons. I'm sorry. There are 2 lion-headed dragons in the upper corners, right? And they are symbols of might and dignity. And the brocades down in the lower corners are symbols of riches. So we have dignity above, we have riches below, we have this prominent couple with a crown above their heads showing status. And this card can expand worth for ourselves and for others. Yeah, we have the potential of expanding our value or helping others expand their own value. But we want to be careful that excessive love of material comforts can damage our health now. So the warning here is, yes, we can expand our value and we can help others, but we don't want to enjoy ourselves too much in like drink or in other things which are, or like rich foods, because that will at this time perhaps not be so good for us physically. We have the ability to make money. But on the other hand, we also have the ability to blow it all away on some risky thing. So we want to be careful not to blow it away on excess or on risky thing. We don't want to blow our money on lots of expensive bottles of wine and drink them all, is the way I'm going to remember that. Yeah, because if I have an excess thing these days, that could be it. So we don't want to use our money foolishly. We want to keep ourselves a little bit reserved and a little bit practical, not go overboard, not be hermits or be aesthetics by any means, but not be aesthetics, enjoy ourselves aesthetically, but don't be hedonists either. So we will do well making money, especially if we cater to others' extravagance. Now, if we help others enjoy their hedonistic life rather than succumbing into it ourselves, we could get some value in one way or another. It could be cash money or it could be some other thing. some other value added to us. And we're good at sensing the market for the aesthetic, the beautiful, the luxurious now. So that could be something to keep our eye out for. Again, not pouring our own money into it though, right? This isn't the time for us to be spending money for lavishing ourselves with things that we might not necessarily need. And we want to check our priorities and whether material gain is the most important thing for us right now. And it might not be. We have the potential for it, but maybe that's not the most important thing. So these two cards are giving us some wonderful things. We have the ability to communicate, to be creative and articulate, and we have the ability to expand our wealth and help others expand their wealth. But we also want to be careful we do not try to do too many things. We want to be careful that we don't overindulge ourselves. We want to be careful that we don't start things and then stop them because we suddenly think it's not interesting anymore. Yeah, we start things and we keep going with them. And we want to take notes of what thoughts we're having because they could lead to something. We want to research what's around because we could find things that are valuable for us or others. And we could gain materially, but that might not be the point, right? Does that make sense? I hope it does make sense for you. I hope you enjoyed this walk through this week's spread. Thank you for being here. Thank you for walking this path with me. Thank you for doing those things that you do, hitting the thumbs up button, subscribing if you haven't already subscribed. It helps the channel. It truly, truly does. We're getting close to 500 now. For me, that's a pretty good thing. And for us, it's a pretty good thing too, I think. If you have any questions, if you have any desires, if you would read some of these things differently, if what I said does not make sense, let me know in the comments below. I would love to engage with you in a positive way, in a constructive way. And if you want a reading from me, my email address is below, thehangedmaninthemoon@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, we'll get you a reading, okay? Okay, so friends, here we are. If you want either of these decks, the links will be in the description box below. And now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.